All right, so we've got this stack of intel here about the GTA real estate scene, September 2024. Is this a blip, or is this like the start of a bigger trend?
A $1 million question, right?
Yeah, and for our listeners, is this the moment they've been waiting for to get into this crazy market?
Mm.
Okay, so we're looking at TRREB's latest data, Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, for anyone who's new to the game. Their data is pretty much the gold standard for the GTA. And they're saying almost 5,000 homes were sold in September, which is up a decent amount from last year. I think it was around 8.5%, something like that.
Yeah, close to a 10% jump in sales year over year. Definitely gets your attention. But it's all about context, right? Like, remember earlier this year when everyone thought the market was going to crash? Didn't exactly pan out, did it?
Nope.
So this jump in sales could just be a bounce back from all that uncertainty, you know?
That makes sense. So how are they explaining this little surge? Pent-up demand finally bursting at the seams.
Well, Jennifer Pierce, she's TRG's president, and she seemed to think that's part of it. Buyers feel a bit more confident now with the interest rate cuts we've seen and the fact that home prices have come down a bit from the peak.
Yeah, I bet. It's like everyone was holding their breath and now they can finally exhale a little. But even with the cuts, interest rates are still a bit scary, aren't they?
True, but even a small drop can make a big difference psychologically,
Yeah.
especially for those buyers who were this close to qualifying for a mortgage before.
Right. Okay, so that makes sense. More buyers dipping their toes back in the market. But what about the other side of the equation? Are sellers finally realizing that it's not 2022 anymore?
It's starting to look that way. New listings also jumped up a lot in September, over 10% actually. So we're talking more than 18,000 new listings hitting the market. Remember all those stories about sellers refusing to budge on those crazy asking prices?
Oh, yeah. Those were wild times.
Yeah, well, it seems like reality is sinking in. This surge in listings could mean that sellers are adjusting their expectations and getting in line with the current market.
Okay, so more options for buyers. Maybe a bit more room to negotiate on price. This is starting to sound promising, but let's cut to the chase here. What's the actual financial situation these days for someone who wants to buy in the GTA?
Okay, get ready for a big number. The average selling price in September was $11,107,291.
Oof. Still a pretty penny.
It is, but that number is actually down about 1% from September last year. And if you dig into TRE's home price index, which gives you a broader picture, we're actually looking at a year-over-year drop of 4.6%.
Whoa, 4.6%. That's a serious price adjustment. So the market's looking a little less intimidating these days. But is this the start of a new trend or just a temporary blip?
Excellent question. And to really figure that out, we need to unpack which types of homes are seeing the biggest changes in price.
Okay, let's unpack this. Hit me with it. What's leading the pack in the price drop department?
So it looks like condos and townhouses are seeing the biggest price adjustments, at least according to Jason Mercer, TRAB's chief market analyst.
Interesting, because those are usually the go-tos for first-time buyers, right?
Yes, exactly. Often that crucial first step onto the property ladder, especially in a market as competitive as the GTA. So for anyone who's been priced out of the detached home dream, this shift towards more attainable options could be huge.
Okay, so good news for some buyers, but does that mean everyone should be racing out to put in an offer right now?
Well, that's where things get a little more complicated. Real estate's rarely about perfectly timing the market. You know, it's more about understanding your own situation, your finances, your goals. So while these trends are encouraging, it's always wise to approach big financial decisions carefully.
Don't panic buy just because prices have dipped a little. Got it. Speaking of things that might make life easier for buyers, we haven't really talked about those recent mortgage lending guideline changes. Everyone's been buzzing about them. But what do they actually mean for someone trying to buy a home right now?
You're right, those changes are pretty significant. And TRRB seems to think so too. John D. McKell, their CEO, even highlighted them in this report. So let me break it down for you. One of the biggest changes is that now existing mortgage holders can shop around for better rates without triggering the stress test.
Stress test, that thing that feels like jumping through hoops of fire.
Exactly. It's meant to make sure borrowers can handle higher interest rates,
Yeah.
but it also makes it tough to qualify for the best rates when you're renewing. So this change makes it easier to find a lower rate, potentially saving you a lot of money over the life of your mortgage.
Now that's music to any homeowner's ears. Okay, what else is changing? This is good stuff.
Another big one is they've extended the maximum amortization period. Basically, this means you can stretch out your mortgage payments over a longer time. You might end up paying a bit more interest overall, but it can make those monthly payments much more manageable, especially in those first few years of homeownership.
Right, it's all about finding that balance, keeping those monthly costs down without getting in over your head with debt. Anything else our listeners should know about these mortgage changes?
One more thing that I think could be a game changer, especially here in the GTA. They've made it easier to get mortgage insurance for purchases over $1 million. Before it was tricky to insure those higher-priced properties,
Yeah.
but these changes make it more accessible.
Okay, so potentially good news for those aiming for the million-dollar listings, which, let's be honest, isn't exactly rare in the GTA these days.
Yeah, unfortunately not.
We've covered a lot of ground today. If you had to boil it all down,
Yeah.
what would you say are the key takeaways for our listener, the one who's dreaming of owning a place in the GTA?
Well, I think it's becoming clear that the GTA market is shifting. We're seeing good signs, increased sales, price is softening, and these new mortgage guidelines that could really help buyers.
There's always a however.
Right, and it's important. Remember, this is just a snapshot. Things change quickly in real estate. What's true today might not be tomorrow.
Stay informed, stay vigilant, don't make any rash decisions based on one news report.
So you're saying maybe don't go all in just yet, but there's a glimmer of hope on the horizon.
Exactly. This could be a turning point, but we need to be cautiously optimistic.
Okay. A good strategy for navigating this crazy real estate landscape.
Mm.
We've thrown a lot of numbers and trends at you today. So when we come back, we'll break down what it all means for you, our listener, and whether or not this is the moment you've been waiting for. Don't go anywhere.
All right, so we're back. You've heard all the numbers, you've seen the trends. But what does it all actually mean for you, our listener? You know, the one who's been waiting for the right time to make a move in this crazy GTA market. Is this it? Should you be racing to put in an offer?
That's the million-dollar question.
Mm.
And unfortunately,
Yeah.
there's no easy answer. It really depends on your individual circumstances, your finances, your needs, how much risk you're comfortable with.
Right, it's not one size fits all.
Not at all. But I will say this. If you've been feeling priced out, stuck on the sidelines, this might be that window of opportunity you've been waiting for. We're seeing some pretty strong signs pointing to a buyer's market emerging.
That's gotta be music to some people's ears.
Yeah.
But I'm sure some of our listeners are thinking, wait a minute, those interest rates are still terrifying.
You're absolutely right. Even with the recent cuts, interest rates are still a huge factor. The good news is you don't have to figure it all out on your own. A good mortgage broker can be a lifesaver, helping you compare rates and find the best possible deal.
Like having a real estate Sherpa to guide you through all the paperwork. Speaking of expert guidance, it's been great chatting with you today. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners before we wrap things up?
Just remember, this market report is a snapshot in time. Things can change quickly in real estate. The key is to stay informed and be ready to adapt. Don't be afraid to ask questions, do your research, and find professionals you trust to guide you through the process.
Love it. Knowledge is power, especially when you're making a big decision like buying a home. Well, that wraps up another deep dive into the world of real estate. We hope you found it helpful and maybe even a little inspiring. Remember, your dream home might be closer than you think. Until next time, happy house hunting.